Let's go. So, Jason, now is the time.
Now is the best time.
And the
Yes.
topic for this week is pretty special. And pretty special for this 50th celebration is this one. Top 3 signs that Walt is still in the parks. Jason was the first one to bring, so he's going. So let's go to Jason's number 3.
My number three, which is probably not a great surprise, is Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse, and that is because a number of reasons. Number one, I don't think an attraction like this gets built without Walt's driving that. Without Walt being involved in that concept. I can't imagine Disney today saying, you know what we should do? We should build a treehouse. People have to walk. They have to climb the stairs, and they get to the top.
Not
and
just a normal size one, a giant one.
And there's no characters at all, and there's only music. This one little ditty from a movie that no one has seen in decades, right? Like, it's never going to happen. But
That wasn't very good.
but it doesn't. Actually, I enjoyed it, but it doesn't really matter because it's as soon as you step through that entranceway, you are transported to this place that's so far away, and it's just leaps from your imagination. You can, there's the little crow's nest where they have the hammocks. My favorite room. There's mom and dad's room with the little organ and stuff. It's so I love it. But what I also like about this is when you're at the top, you can look out and you can see other things inspired by Walt, like Jungle Cruise below you. Like, you can look off in the distance and see the Big Thunder Mountain, with a mesa, Big Thunder Mesa kind of thing. There's all these things that when I'm up there, I see it. And I'm not going to name some of the other things you can see from up there because I know they're on the list. But there's it's you can imagine like Walt would come up here if he could. He would climb these stairs and get up here and to survey his kingdom.
And you got it right, one thing, buddy, because there's a in everything we're gonna see in this list, there's a particular vibe. You can see that is the energy that drove the conception and the ideas behind those attractions is so different from what we have now. It's so particular to that kind of experience that I loved it. Colin, it's your number 3.
My number 3 is kind of an obscure one, but I think it encompasses kind of the nature of what Walt would have enjoyed. And for me, it's Fort Wilderness. It is everything that you think characteristically Walt would have loved, and what he would have loved of the space. It's simple, but it's enjoyable. It's family friendly. It's got a lot of experiences that a lot of people won't take the time out of their day to experience in their normal lives, so they can combine them all here and enjoy them. You've got the horses, you've got canoes or kayaks, whichever one they want to call them. You've got trails in, you've got hoop-de-doo typically, and those are just, to me, those are things that all characteristically Walt, I think, would have loved because of the family atmosphere of it all and the way that they create memories for people that are unique from about any other theme park experience. It's so iconic of Disney to an extent, and it's one that resonates with so many people over the years, from the trading post area to just all the different facets of that experience that are very simple, very enjoyable, and the views are incredible, and you just feel so far from an amusement park, very similar to Wilderness Lodge, really, which almost made my list. But at the same time, there's a lot of value over there that you don't have to open your wallet too much for.
I love this pick, and I think that you hit the nail on the head. And I don't think a campground gets built nowadays. And in terms of Walt's focus on making sure that there was a family-friendly experience. I don't think you could get any more accessible.
And look how many people still experience it. I mean, it's full like every week.
Yes. And it still can be experienced by itself. It's something that you don't need. You don't need to to incorporate to another experience to be special. If you want to spend the whole day there, doing that, it will be great. Even the weekend there, it's going to be great.
Yeah, not to mention they used to have a railroad.
Yes, and I was about to say that.
Yeah, there's a few pieces of it still lingering behind if you know where to look for them. But
so let's go to my number 3. It is the Tiki room. Yes, and And it's so obvious that because it's Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, and you have Walt's fingerprints in all over. It's he's the one that originated the first idea due to that little bird that he brought it from a trip. Some people say it's from France, and some people say it is from New Orleans. It was supposed to be a restaurant that they moved to the idea to be an attraction itself. It is amazing. It is lovely. It is something that every single time that I go, I still have the same sensation. It doesn't wear out on you. It's something that for me continues being pretty special. And as the treehouse and as the campground, it has that vibe that is a little bit. It takes you to. There's something in the Tiki Room that if you guys don't know, you're probably gonna put in the same category of the Phoenician Bay and that Pirates. I love just speaking to those windows.
Yes. The storm.
Yeah, the storm. I love that. I said, I wish I could go to that place there, to those mountains.
Animatronic birds surrounding you, and you're looking out the window.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that.
So no, there's something. It reminds me of when I was a kid, and there was a thunderstorm, and we would be huddled out on our screened-in porch, and there's just something oddly comforting about the kind of feeling like you're kind of in the storm, but you're sheltered, but just barely. It's like right there. There's something that's so familiar. It's like it's this tropical, exotic location, right?
Yeah.
But there's something so familiar and comforting about that space at that moment.
At that moment, yeah. Jason, let's go to your second.
My number 2. Speaking of railroads, it is the Walt Disney Railroad and the Walt Disney World Railroad and in particular the Main Street station there. And this is kind of a little bit of a cheat. Because not only, the railroad, there's such an obvious connection to Walt Disney with the railroads, right? And I think that this is, to lose the railroad would be to lose the soul of the Magic Kingdom, right? You have to have it. But that Main Street station, there's something so, it's almost a spiritual experience when you walk through that tunnel. Mm-hmm. And you get the grand reveal, the sort of curtain rising effect. And every time I walk through that space, whether I'm doing a live show or I'm just walking through on my own, and I think about that. I think about that curtain going up, and I think about, Walt's intention behind that in terms of having this grand reveal. And even when you walk into the town square and you can't see the castle yet, there's between the station, the tunnel, the train, the whole thing, it just immediately triggers this, not only, hey, you're entering this very special and unique space, but this is the space that Walt built. That's why I missed the train. I missed the train whistle, because it's like when I felt like every time you heard the train whistle, it was kind of another little reminder of Walt.
Buddy, you're number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is the monorail, and I put it on the list because I was trying to think of things that Walt would have actually seen, at least a variation of as well, in a quite literal sense. And I think there's no greater example of that than a monorail. Obviously, it's a different variation of the one that he saw originally in Disneyland, but it's also one of the few items in the parks, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that was originally under Wet Enterprises. So it was something he actually owned at one point in time, similar to I believe it was a fire engine on Main Street. And you don't necessarily get that at Walt Disney World, but you still get a resemblance of it, and you still get an experience of it that is something that's kind of iconic. It's the same designer, it's Bob Gurr on both editions, but the series there's something about it when you get in a monorail that you recognize as a different experience than anything you can have just about anywhere else. Not only because you're so high in the air, but also because of the route that it takes, the buildings that you go through, and it has become such an iconic part of the Disney experience. And I know for many people, even if they're only going to Magic Kingdom for a day, they make time to make their loop on the monorail just to say they've done it, even if they rode the ferry into the park. There is some kind of indescribable value to it being there that does kind of harken back to a time that you could recognize Walt being there, that you could see him piloting a monorail, that you could recognize it as something that he really loved at one point in time that has made it all the way to the East Coast. So I couldn't have a list without putting that on it to an extent, even though this was narrowly nudged.
Okay, let's go to my number 2. It is a compliment comment to what Jason brought. Jason brought the Main Street rail station. So I'll be walking down Main Street, and that's the thing that I is the connection. It is not much more as direct as the Tiki Room, because Tiki Room, there was some work and some planning involved from Walt. But the whole thing of Main Street is that influence of his the idea of his hometown, or not home, but that vibe. And also, and I mentioned that to Jason and to Colin, and there was something about the way that they chose the songs and the influence of a live action movie that he was involved. It was Summer of Magic that guided the whole conception of Main Street. I think the whole thing there is the vibe that Main Street has is totally connected and is some kind. For me, it goes a little bit more musical. That brings me that connection with Walt, that more than anything, more than any other place in the other parks. So that is so particular to Main Street. It's not only to have a street with old music playing. No. Main Street there's such a strong personality in Main Street that no other Main Streets in the other parks have. Okay, so let's go to Jason's number one.
Number one, baby. Number one has got to be the carousel. The carousel. I mean, it's the whole connection to Griffith Park, and Walt taking his daughters to Griffith Park in L.A. and sitting on the bench, the infamous bench, and one of which is in Disneyland, and one of which is in the Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, and sitting there with his daughters, and kind of like it's where he dreamed up or schemed up the part of the idea for Disneyland, and the idea of wanting to have a park that families could go to and enjoy the space together. I mean, the carousel, it's not just even just the idea of the carousel and the story behind it, but there's something about the music. There's something about being, it's like seeing it through the castle tunnel in the distance.
Let's go to the your number one.
My number one could be none other than the Peoplemover, and there's 3 reasons for this. One,
it's close
Walt
to the carousel.
Peoplemover in Disneyland. I mean, how can you not put that on the list when it was that kind of legitimate, like, Peoplemover original over there? But 2, it's just a fun attraction. I mean, how can it not be any more iconic than the Peoplemover? And we've talked about it ad nausea on the show about how much we love this attraction, how unique it is, and just the value of how much we missed it when it was gone for a period of time, and that we were hoping that it would come back to the same glory that it had at some point. We miss it desperately at Disneyland and the vibe that it brings to that area. So it had to be on the list. Since I'm at the end of my list, I will say honorable mention had to be Haunted Mansion, because it's not on anybody's list on any of these, which is shocking to me. But it is one of the few attractions at Walt Disney World that Walt did have some historical influence in as far as what it actually became. Obviously not in a literal standpoint, but he did have some influence on the one in Disneyland. It's an attraction when you ride through it, you can't help but think Walt would have absolutely loved to see this version of it too. So it had to be at least mentioned here.
Let me tell you guys, my first one, and we're talking about Tom Sawyer Island, and the whole idea is that actually the original one, the one in Disneyland, he enjoyed it a lot, because it was built and it was ready in 1956, so he had the opportunity to enjoy it a lot. There were some changes in since that time, but not that much. And Colin, do you know what is the name of the fort there?
It's Fort Langhorne, isn't it?
No, in Disneyland.
Not in Disneyland.
Oh, in Disneyland, I have no idea. I've not been on the island at Disneyland.
You mentioned that.
Did I?
Fort Wilderness. It is Fort Wilderness.
Oh, that makes sense. That does make sense.
And used to be a fort that people used to visit, but not anymore now. You cannot go there anymore due to the fact that it's such an important and prime real estate. That whole area there, that's not so many people visit. That the only reason that nothing happened to that part of the park yet, it is because of Walt.
What's interesting about the island in Walt Disney World is that it is a literal island. Like if you look at it from a satellite imagery, like there is no connecting bridge.
It is now.
It's not a peninsula. It's not. There's nothing. No, I mean, but right now, like there's only literally one way to get to it, and that is by boat. How much island is still there? Like how much extra island still exists, like beyond the fort?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot. Of
Yes,
land
you're right.
that goes
You're
back
right.
through there. But you notice if you take the riverboat around, you
It's a
pass
little
the Tom
swampy,
Sawyer
but
Island.
there is land. Yeah.
A lot of land. And I think to change that, I mean, certainly they'll do something with it at some point. But to change it too much, at least the part that's visible from Frontierland and from Liberty Square, would really dramatically alter the feel of those spaces themselves. And I think you have to be really careful about that too.
Yep.
So I think there is opportunity to do something further back, for sure.
I would
But
love to see them do something with the
hope
train
never.
like they did at Disneyland. In that space, just to give it a little more life and more fun.
Oh,
as you go
with
around
the
through
trellis
there. That'd be
bridge
cool.
kind of thing?
Yeah, that would be really cool.
No, I would like to see that. That'd be fun.